Why was the Book of Enoch banned from the Bible, and does it hold the true key to the UFO phenomenon? We will dive deep into one of history's most mysterious texts, the Book of Enoch. Though excluded from the biblical canon, this ancient text was preserved for thousands of years in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Are these ancient stories of celestial beings actually the earliest documented accounts of UFO and UAP encounters?
Before we get into that, you know Tucker's thoughts on this whole UFO UAP thing? He thinks they're like angels and demons from the Bible, and he thinks that they've always been here. And you know, I'm sure you're aware of like the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, which was one of the original biblical texts that wasn't included in the canon, but just because of a few rabbis decided it didn't jive with the Torah. And they found the Book of Enoch along with the Book of Isaiah as a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when you find out that there was a biblical text that was contemporary to books that did make it into the Old Testament, and that they talk about the Watchers who come from above and mate with humans and create this race of giants called the Nephilim who destroy everything and consume everything. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is this? And just stop and imagine if those rabbis hadn't if that hadn't been excluded. Like Wesley Huff is great talking about this stuff. He's a real historian when it comes to, you know, really understanding the history of these biblical texts, and you know, and he's absolutely fascinated by it. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy that they just decided to not put that in the Bible. Imagine if they did. And part of when you're going to church and they're going over the Old Testament, like, okay, this week we're gonna go over the Book of Enoch, and we're gonna figure out who the Watchers are. Like, what is that? Like, what is that story? The crazy thing that Wes Huff told me was that the Book of Isaiah that they found in the Dead Sea Scroll predates the oldest version of the Book of Isaiah by more than 1,000 years.
Whoa.
When they found it, they found out that there was a Book of Isaiah that is 1,000 years older than the one they thought was the oldest one, and it is verbatim. It's verbatim from the one that's 1,000 years later.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But then it's also in the same fucking caves as the Book of Enoch. It's all together there in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Amazing. I mean, we've been fed this story that sort of all of these religions and myths from the past are all just false.
Right.
They're all just hallucinations.
Right.
They're all just lies.
I don't believe that.
It's just really, it's really arrogant, actually. Like, it's like, well, no, now, like, we've been around for, humans have been around for like millions of years, but the last 150 years, it's like we really figured it all out. And we figured out that all human knowledge before, whatever, some recent time period is nonsense. Yeah, I think that's quite arrogant.
It's very arrogant, but I'm a believer that history is far older than we think it is. And I think the more time goes on, the more that gets revealed. So when you're talking about something that's 4,000 or 5,000 years old, I think really you're talking about a retelling of a far older story. And I think it's very difficult when you're dealing with people that don't have an understanding of science. The written language is fairly new. It's an oral tradition for generations before it's ever written down. So my question with all of this is always like, what were they trying to talk about? What were they trying to say? What was the original experience that someone documented in story, and then that story was relayed over and over and over again, generation after generation, until it's eventually written down, and then they study it and take it literally. And then also translating it from Aramaic, which is the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient Hebrew, all these different languages, to Latin and Greek and eventually English. Like, but what's the original story? Like, what are they trying to document? What is this important knowledge that they want to share? And how screwed up would that get over the generations and generations of talking about it? But what ultimate truth is in there? Like, I'm absolutely fascinated by the story of Jesus Christ. Because if you wanted to come up with a way that people would live that would absolutely be far more beneficial than just going on natural instincts and tribal behavior, and you would follow Jesus's teachings. Like, I can't find a flaw in the way he tells you to live life. There's a lot of religions that involve, torturing non-believers and raping infidels and being able to do terrible things to the people that don't believe your religion. There's none of that in Christianity. It's all forgiveness. It's all treating your brother and your neighbor as if they're you. Like it's a beautiful way to live life.
Are you Christian?
Well, I go to church, and I have been for quite a while.
Okay, so
I've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
But that's not really an answer to the question.
Well, because I don't know. I think it's very interesting, and I do believe that if you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, you will live a better life. I really do believe that. And one of the things I talk about is like, the people that I go to church with are the most fucking polite people I've ever met in my life. They're so kind and so nice, and everybody lets you out of the parking lot. Everybody's like, you go, you go. It's like the one, like it works. You know what I'm saying? Like if people are trying to find an idea, does that mean I believe people came back from the dead? Does that mean I believe Moses parted the Red Sea? Not really. No, it seems like that's most likely a story where people are telling it generation after generation after generation, but there's probably something happening. There's probably some truth to it. Then when you take into account some of the stories from the Old Testament, like the book of Ezekiel, which I'm absolutely fascinated by. Book of Ezekiel and his account of the wheel within a wheel and the fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming metal. Like, what the hell is that? Like, what is that? Like, what are these stories? And in the midst of this gleaming metal, there's the likeness of 4 living creatures. Like, okay, they darted to and fro like the appearance of a flash of lightning. Okay, what is that? Like, what were they trying to say? And what was the original experience that people documented that was so important?
And it might have been a lot more similar to these UFO experiences.
That's the
point.
point.
We've seen. Yeah,
and I think this is one of the things that Tucker goes back to.
The Christian story is so beautiful and so important. You know, Rene Girard's view of Christianity as really stopping the cycle of scapegoating. You know, scapegoating where, and I'm seeing it right now as part of the reason we've been pushing back against the moral panic on Epstein, is that you scapegoat the thing. You know, traditionally it literally was a goat, but you scapegoat the person or whatever.
Wait a minute, originally it was a goat?
It really was a goat, yeah.
What?
It was a goat, yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it would carry the sins of the community.
Oh, you sacrifice
and
the goat?
I think you would send it away to die or something.
Oh.
But over time it became
that's what
people.
a scapegoat was?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then,
It's always a goat.
But generally
Goats are the devil. Goats are
Yeah.
everything.
Oh,
goats get a bad rap.
goats are in your lobby, aren't they? Or those are elk. No, in your lobby.
Elk.
Okay.
No, that's a big difference.
Yeah, but I mean, so Christianity puts an end to that. It says, stop scapegoating. I mean, they scapegoated Jesus, really. I mean, you kind of go, you scapegoat, the purpose of the scapegoating was for the community, to unite the community and scapegoat to put all of its sins on one thing and then kill it or get rid of it. And that was the way the community would restore unity. Christianity said, no, we're not going to do it that way. That's immoral. And so, he without sin should be the first to cast a stone. Jesus wasn't saying that prostitution was good or anything. He was saying that we should not be scapegoating, you've got sins too, so don't scapegoat this person. That's a really radical moment in human history, and it really is what allowed humans to spread. It creates a universal, Christianity is the first universal, it's really universal religion. Maybe it's not the only, but it's a universal religion. It says everybody is a child of God, and it's evangelical, and it wants other people to become Christian. That's different from other religions where I'm like, this is my God, I've got my own God here, and we're the best, and you suck, and
they make it very difficult to join.
Yeah, and it's not to say that Christians, obviously there was, fighting the Muslims, and there's some interesting revisionism there, but it's a beautiful religion.
There's terrible things that have been done under the guise of Christianity,
Right.
but if you listen to the teachings of Jesus Christ, they're not following his teachings. So it's like, that's just human behavior that they have tagged on to Christianity. So when people say Christianity is responsible for horrible atrocities, I say no. I say humans are. Because if it was actually Christianity, you would be following the teachings of Christ, and there would be none of those things.
Anti-Semitism is not Christian.
Right.
So
Right.
True Christianity is not that. So I think it's lovely, and I hope there's a revival of some of it. I'm not sure there is.
I think there is more now than before. There's a lot of young people that are getting into Christianity.
I think it's good to. I think it's also. I mean, it's interesting with we were talking about the UFO thing. It's an awareness that there's a higher power. So one can sort of say, look, the UFO thing, it's not the same as Christianity or whatever. But this awareness that like we're not, like there's something else going on. There's something more. There's something higher than us, and that we should be humble in the face of this just gigantic mystery. I think that puts us in a better mentality.
It certainly does. And if anything, if he's not the Son of God, if this was an actual historical figure, what an insanely wise human being who didn't have these thoughts that are inherent to all of us of vengeance and lust and greed. Has none of these.
So radical. Also, you've heard it said before that you should, love your friends and hate your enemies. I say to you, you should love your enemies. I mean, that's just, it's like the hardest. I'm not there. I think very few people are there, but it's certainly the right aspiration, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the right aspiration. And Tucker thinks that this whole UFO thing is somehow connected to the spiritual realm.